80-year-old female being admitted for sepsis, and the disposition is sniff. The patient is coming in with staph A, so we're going to choose the staph. The patient developed respiratory failure, and also we're going to use that as our principal. Staph. And now we're going to choose respiratory failure because the patient developed respiratory failure after admission. And it was acute. The patient was put on a mechanical ventilator for 104 hours, and they were not intubated. Now I'm going to compute. And that is...
Just leave it there for just a second. Let me go wide to get all of that.
That is your final diagnoses.
Okay, that's it, right?
Okay, we have an 80-year-old patient who is admitted for Staph aureus sepsis. So the demographic information's been entered. And we are going to code her case now. And we're going to look up sepsis. And it's generalized, so we'll get some more information on that. And I have a note here saying code first the underlying infection. So the underlying infection is Staph aureus, so I will search for staph, so that can be coded first. And we have Staph aureus right here. We'll click on it. And there it is. We'll stick it over here. And smart tips pop up, giving us some information about coding this. There's other conditions to code. Rules about newborn, which doesn't apply here, so we're okay. And now we can code the sepsis. And there we are with the generalized, and we'll just click on it. We have some information to code the underlying infection, which we did. And now we can move on to the other diagnosis that she had. The smart tips, sorry, I forgot about that. And it just gives you some information about coding, the guidelines. There's a vascular catheter, and then to code the underlying condition, which we did. So this information doesn't apply to us now, so we are okay. And then now the next condition is her respiratory failure. So let's search failure. And I'm reading the little screen here. We'll scroll down through. Oh. We have to go to the next page. And are we on it? Following acute respiratory failure is right here. And I'm looking to see which one will apply. It doesn't look like any will. Let me go back up. This is just like reading the book. Let's see. Combined systolic heart. Okay, I am looking here. Okay, let me go to the next page. Oh, respiratory. There we go. We found it. Okay, so we have to do a little digging in here, and we found it. We have acute respiratory failure, which we have, and there's some little notes in there about what it excludes, but this one applies. So we'll double click on it to throw it over in our diagnosis. And then again, the smart tips pop up, and it just lets us know the rules and guidelines for assigning that, and when we're supposed to make it a primary versus a secondary. So it's a secondary, so we're okay with this. And then now the patient had mechanical ventilation. So now we're going to switch over. We're in the diagnosis section of the code book. We're going to go over into the procedures. And you'll notice it automatically switches over here in our code description area. So she was on mechanical ventilation, so we will search for that. And mechanical, there we go. And I believe it was for 104 hours, so it was more than 96 consecutive hours. We'll click on that. And there's our information down here, mechanical ventilation. And we might want to go up to the top to see if there's a note. We'll see what Smart Tips says when we add this over. We clicked on it. There's some rules here. Code also the endotracheal intubation or tracheostomy. We don't know in this case. We need some further information, so we'll have to query the physician for that. But we also need to know how the mechanical ventilation was administered. So we need to do a query for that, and we know what we're looking for, and we're okay with the mechanical ventilation here. And that's it. And so now we want to find out what the DRG is. So we'll go back to the patient's demographics screen. Actually, I forgot to do one thing, which was on the diagnosis was copy it to the admitting diagnosis. So I'm going back over there. We're backtracking a little. We can just do it from this area right here. And this first one, we can copy. So it's going to put it up there for us. Now we're good. And we go back to the demographics. And then we want the DRG, so there we go. We click this little magnifying glass, it's a little shortcut key, and there is our DRG for the patient.